Hey guys, today I have a book review for you. I know, shock and awe, I finished reading a book. If you look at Goodreads, I did not do the thing in February at all, but I have now finished 2 books in March. 2. Unheard of. Crazy. Oof. One of those books, though, is The Inquisitor's Tale by Hatem Gidwitz, and I wanted to talk to you guys about it today. Gretchen also wanted to hear my opinions on this because as I was reading it, I was saying, wow, this is a really interesting children's book. It was recommended to me by one of my coworkers, and I saw that it did receive the Newbery Honor. I'm not sure why exactly I was reluctant to pick up the book at first, and I don't think it had anything to do with like the plot of the book or even the cover art. It was just that some part of me was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be like a fantasy book that's like legit historical fantasy, and that's less interesting to me. However, I really enjoyed this book, which is in part surprising to me because, again, I don't like historical-based fantasy. It's historical fiction. He did research on parts of this, and the characters in here were based off of a couple of people in actual history, and then the events were fudged a little bit. I don't know, but then again, some of the events were also lore and things that happened, so who knows, you know, crazy things in history happened. The thing I thought that was most interesting about this book to start was the structure. It's like the Canterbury Tales in that the whole book is a bunch of different people telling a story about these 3 kids and their dog. You don't really get to hear from the kids. You get to hear from a blacksmith who worked in the town that the little girl grew up in, and a monk who worked at the monastery where one of the kids was raised, and, you know, a butcher from down the street who got saved by one of the kids. And all of these people, for whatever reason, are together in this inn on this one night. And then there's our narrator, or our chronicler in a way, the Inquisitor, who's taking all of these stories and sort of putting them together and trying to figure out what actually is up with these kids. And then my favorite character is sort of this creepy nun who fills in the blanks. So when one person sort of falls out of the story, or the characters leave the sight of the person who's telling the story, she somehow knows what gets them from point A to point B for one of the other characters to pick up the story. I don't want to talk too much, but I really liked how at the end who she was and what she was left ambiguous. It really, to me, hit home what the main point of this story was, which was to discuss different prejudices and discuss the black and white nature of what is good and what is evil, and how in reality everything is gray. So you have this whole structure where these 3 kids all have a reason to dislike one of the other kids because of some aspect of their identity. We have 1 Jewish kid and 2 Christians. We have 2 peasants and 1 monk. We have a girl who has been vilified as a witch versus a monk who's a member of the church who would be in charge of like burning her. We have 2 boys and a girl. You know, there's all of these things where like there's interlocking pieces between them, and there's always going to be one part that sort of sets somebody away from the others, whether it be their socioeconomic standpoint, their religious views, their heritage, whatever it is. And I was surprised how well he was able to weave all of these different elements together and create an idea in all of the minds of the kids and all of the minds of these people that your first thought about somebody, or what somebody you trust tells you about somebody, doesn't necessarily mean that it's the reality. So the monk who is raised to fear Jews because they're not Christian, they're wayward children, right? They lost their way, likes his friend, right? So he's made to challenge these things that he's been told the whole time. And because these kids are meant to challenge it, so too are the adults who are telling and listening to this story. It was also very funny. There was an entire scene where somebody was shouting about my ass, meaning his donkey, but like it had that like childlike where the 12-year-old boy inside of me went and on top of that, it still had this like severity and this weight of consequence that other stories might not have had with the humor. It wasn't wholly lighthearted. It just sort of came up and was part of the story, and while it did seem a little bit like he was playing to the kids, I liked the fact that there was this humor in there, and I liked the fact that even though there was these serious themes and this very serious sort of historical novel, you get this humor and this playfulness that really helps endear you to the book and endear you to these characters. And if you are looking for a historical fiction book, I would pick this up whether you're an adult or a kid. It was a very well written and just an interesting book. Aside from the fact that it was written for kids, like it just in general is a really good book to look at. So if you are looking for a historical book and you want something mildly fantastical or somewhat religious or any of the above, I would recommend picking this guy up. It's definitely a really good option. That's all I have for you guys today. I hope to talk to you soon. Gretchen will be back to me in a couple of days, so I will not be all by myself, and I miss her dearly, and I want her to be here right now, but she is not. So I will talk to you guys when I talk to you, and hopefully she will be here on Monday to talk to you, because we cannot only have me. I am boring. I talk about kids' books, and that's it. Bye.